Hi, and welcome to Idaho Parents Unlimited's presentation of disability diagnosis. Now what? We're going to be talking about autism tips for parents who are either new to this diagnosis or new to the realm of, I guess, a new world of navigating systems and healthcare, school, therapy, all of those things that may or may not come along with a diagnosis of your child's disability, or and how to go about understanding that and what that means for your child, or any of your children in your home that may have experienced some new challenges or things going on in their life. So my name is Sarah Tuller. I am the program coordinator at Idaho Parents Unlimited, and we'll talk a little bit about who we are at IPUL, as we are so often referred to. We speak in acronyms sometimes, and most of our families know us as IPUL, IPUL, which is our the acronym for our business. And I'm joined by Alex McGowan and Melissa Vian. And go ahead and introduce yourself, Alex.
I'm Alex McGowan, and I am a parent education coordinator here at Idaho Parents Unlimited.
And hi, nice to be here. I am Melissa Vian. I'm also a parent education coordinator here at IPUL, and we are excited to be here with you guys today.
Yes. So as we get started, we're going to go ahead and talk about how to navigate this world. And there are multiple paths that happen when you are looking for a diagnosis or might already have received one, and what do we do? So my story and how I started this journey, I have 3 children, and my first son, my oldest son is 22, and he just is about to graduate from college at Boise State University, and he will have his degree in visual arts, and he'll graduate from the fine arts. He'll have a bachelor's degree in fine arts from BSU here in May, and his journey started in kindergarten. It actually started well before that, but in kindergarten officially, when he was given an IQ test, and he qualified for, or was found eligible for, the Gifted and Talented program. And about 20 years ago or 18 years ago, we had no idea what that really was. When I was in school, the Gifted and Talented program, was for those kids who regular education, the general education was, it didn't fit their learning needs, and they needed to be challenged more. And so my son, I didn't know what that looked like for him. And then my middle son, he was 20 now, in first grade, was diagnosed with ADHD. And I didn't know what that was going to look like either. The only experience I had with ADHD was medication. And we did not, I did not want my children to be medicated for their whole life. But I will say that experience opened my eyes and ears, and our family's discussion about, what path do we take, and what do we do as a family, and what's going to be right for our family, and what's the best for him. And so we started to explore many different options, counseling, medication. And I will have to say medication was our last resort. We tried diet, we tried activities, and when he was a little older, when he was able to say, "Mom, the medicine makes the voices and the things in my head stop talking to me all the time and helping me," then I realized that, the medication was the right the right thing for him. He was still active. He was still moving a lot. We had him in sports, and he was just he was an active boy, and the medication helped his brain to slow down and help him think. It didn't necessarily change him, and it took us a while to find the right medicine, but it didn't change who he was necessarily. And, we still battle with that with him as an adult. But it started to open our eyes and our ears and our hearts to different perspectives, and how to talk to teachers and how to talk to friends and coaches and different people. And we weren't alone. I realized, we were not alone, and we met families and we met people and kids and talked to many different people about, what their path was and what they did. And then my youngest son, who is now 15, was born at 26 weeks gestation. So he weighed 1 pound, 10 ounces. We lived in the NICU for 4 months. And that started us down a completely different path of intense healthcare issues, physical disabilities, developmental delays, and special education, the infant toddler program, all these things that we just kind of were thrust into without explanation. And we kind of had an idea of things that were available because of our son with ADHD, but it was nothing compared to what we were going to go through with our youngest son. And every situation was completely different, but it was not necessarily bad, and there were not necessarily great things that happened, but there are people out there and there are different paths, and we're going to kind of go over some of those as we move through this presentation. So do either of you, Alex or Melissa, have a story to tell or want to talk about a couple of those paths? I don't put you on the spot here, but
Sure. My son, he was starting to show some signs where he was having sensory, and one of the first signs was we were painting his hand, and he would not be consolable. He was screaming and crying, did not want to be dirty. When it came to eating, he had a lot of different sensory issues as well. Or if you gave him a broken banana, it was not the banana that he wanted to eat. And then a whole lot of anxiety started to creep up as well. And so once we had all of these different things and signs showing, we ended up going and seeing what we could do with a neuropsych eval to see what his diagnosis would be and to see what kind of path we can get on to get him the help and supports that could help him be a productive citizen in the coming years. So we went, and he ended up getting an autism diagnosis based off of multiple signs and a long process of an evaluation.
Yeah, and my path is a little bit different to both of theirs, and that just goes to show that everybody does have those different paths. Our third child, I noticed something was off. I just knew, my gut told me around 6 months he wasn't making those milestones, and I brought it up to our pediatrician, and the pediatrician was very old school at that point and said, oh, he's just lazy, he's a third child, this happens all the time. I knew in my mom gut that wasn't right. So I pursued some early intervention. We had him assessed by the infant toddler program, and that was a great stepping stone for us. And he progressed nicely. I want to say nicely. He did well in the infant toddler program, and it wasn't until he was 9 months old and had a seizure that we went the route of finding some neurologist to get in our corner, and we went a genetic diagnosis way. So my son has Angelman syndrome, and he was diagnosed at about 11 months old. So we have a different path. We all have different paths, but it's all about adapting to your new reality and figuring out what works for you and what works for your family.
Yeah, thanks you guys for sharing those stories. And like we said, everyone has a different path. So, Melissa and Alex noticed some changes, and even I noticed changes. And actually, in our situation, it was the teacher who had started to see some of these things with my son who had ADHD. So we noticed these things in our kids, we felt these things in our guts, and we talked to our pediatrician. That was the first thing that we did. And then we got those assessments, and then referrals to these other agencies. And that's really like the first step, I would say, to take place. Talk to your child's pediatrician, or general practitioner. That is just fine too. Some of us don't have pediatricians. We just have general family practitioners, and that works, whatever works for your family. But to get those referrals to specialists, and those specialists or your pediatrician have the connections and referral abilities to those specialist agencies. And then in Friday's segment, we're going to talk about the financing part of that, and then what Idaho programs have, and then what your insurance covers, and how, if you need a referral to see a specialist or a referral to go to these other programs. So, but that's the step to getting that. Unfortunately, in order to receive services, we have to have diagnosis. So those are the steps to receiving a diagnosis. And then we move on to questions. So we all had a lot of questions. In my mind, I'm like, I first thought of, oh my gosh, what is going to happen in the future? I go straight to, I don't know anything. I'm not used to having to raise children that might need additional assistance in their life. But my mind goes straight to the worst. I think that all of us kind of do at the moment. We're like, oh my gosh. And then it's that fight or flight. We go to that fight mechanism and then we kind of take a breath and we calm down. And then we have to start making our list of, okay, now what do I do? And, now in this day and age where we've got the internet, everyone goes to the internet and finds all these amazing, wonderful treats of advice and information. But because we want to know answers, we want to know why, we want to know how to fix it, we want to know what to do, we want to know how to understand it, and because we want what's best for our kids, and we want life to be, in my situation, I want my child to not have to struggle and be bullied, or whatever instance that comes to the front of our mind. We want to protect our children. So what do? We ask questions. We ask questions from anyone and everyone who we think are going to know. So we're going to kind of talk about some of the vetted sources here that are good places to start. So it's important that we start with the professionals that are trained in the area that we're looking for. They're going to know where to go. They'll have the science behind and the research behind what we're looking at. And a lot of times, they're going to have seen multiple situations and help us kind of get that bigger picture, calm down, and at the same time, they are going to give us information about both sides of the story, both sides of the situation, where, in our situation, a little bit like Melissa's, with her son, it was kind of that we got to wait and see. He might grow out of it. We really aren't going to know what's happening until he gets a little bit older and starts to not hit those milestones. And I'm talking about my youngest son, who has developmental delay, even though he was born early. There's some kids who are not affected at all, and some who are affected immensely. It just depends on how they develop and grow as they continue to develop and grow. And so we were told to wait and see, and we don't know what's going to happen. And we had so many different professionals coming in and out of our lives. So, but they they are the ones we listen to, and they are the ones we trusted. However, with that said, it is okay to ask questions. No question is a dumb question. You've never done this before. I've never done it before. We don't know what we don't know, and it's okay. And I like how Melissa said in her gut, she just knew. And as mothers and parents and fathers and anyone taking care of our children, we have this sixth sense. We just know something doesn't feel right or doesn't sit well with us. And but the main thing is that we all are doing the best we can with what we have. And that feeling of this is just not sitting well with me. And it's okay to ask those hard questions, and it's okay to go to a different professional and seek a different answer. Not the right answer, because we don't want to go to someone who's going to tell us what we want to hear. But it's okay to go and seek different answers. Melissa, did you have something to add?
It is. I think that's great. And professionals are sometimes all knowing in one area and not so knowing in another. So seeking out the professional that works best for you and your family and your situation is really important too. We saw a neurologist that didn't work for our family, and we were able to seek out another one that that fit a little bit better. So that's okay to do as well.
Right. And then friends and peers. There are so many support groups out there, and Facebook groups, and you can contact our office and we can help you find those. We will have some websites at the end of our presentation that you can look for and go to for information. But going back to the friends and peers, there are parent support groups in each area of concern that you're looking for that your child may be diagnosed with. And I know we're talking a lot about autism this month, and there are some autism groups out there, and they've been around for a very long time, and they've evolved and grown and changed, and the points of views have changed a little bit. But please know that we are talking to our friends and our peers and family members, or families who have also gone through this, and everyone's going to have a different experience. Your experience is going to be your own, and it's a wonderful tool to have someone else who is going through it with you. And that's what I love about Idaho Parents Unlimited, is that when you call our office, just between the three of us, you can see that there have been we have a multitude of experiences in almost every area that you can find. And so you're going to talk to someone at our office that gets it and understands how you feel, and not just sympathizes with you, but empathizes with you. And, you can cry with us and laugh with us and just be yourself. And we can talk about those hard things with you, and it's going to be hard, but there are also some pretty amazing things out there. I was going to talk, I lost my train of thought on a couple of things, but one thing to remember is that when you're talking to your friends and some of your peers, to talk to your friends and peers about you, about your own self. And I know as hard as it is, it's taken me 15 years to find friends who are going to just talk to you about you, and support you as a parent and not about your child. That self-care is so important as you go through this journey, and that it's okay to say that it's hard, because it is hard. It is hard to watch your child have a hard time when all you're doing is trying to protect them, and no matter what you do, it's going to be difficult. So please take care of yourself. We can't say that enough, because we forget about ourselves. We focus so much on others, and yeah, I can't tell you enough how to take care of yourself, and we can help you figure that out too. Websites or anything else that you want to add, Alex, that you find helpful? Or
yeah, I really like the understood.org. You're able to put in a diagnosis and it pulls up different information, or it links if you put in like executive functioning or anxiety or IEP, and it'll pull up different like paths and then links to go on, and just gives so much information.
Yep. Great. Okay. So reality check. This is great. When I started going through this, a social worker at the hospital told me that there are going to be points where you're going to go through the grieving process several times throughout your journey. And and one of them is denial. And I'm going through another grieving process right now. He's 15 and going into the transition to adulthood stage. And I'm in denial. Like, oh, I don't know what to do. My other two have just left the nest, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling to figure out what life is going to look like for him, and I'm grieving that process. I'm grieving that it's not going to be the same, and it's okay. It's going to be okay, and you've got to go through that process, Melissa.
Yeah. And, we got our diagnosis, and it's okay to grieve the childhood that you thought you were going to have with your child. But it was really, really important for us. And, it took a while. I won't say it happened overnight, but it was really important for us to turn the focus to our son and to make sure that he was Reese and he wasn't his diagnosis. And so how can we, it took that reality check, and like I said, it didn't happen overnight, but it took something to snap inside of us to say, okay, now what? Now what are we going to do? We're taking it one day at a time. We're looking for local people, local agencies, local support. And in our case, there wasn't a lot of local support because he has such a rare neurological diagnosis, but there's support out there, like you talked about. There's parents that get it. They may not have the same diagnosis, but there's parents that get it. Our office gets it. So we can help connect you with people that get it. So it's taking it one day at a time, one foot in front of the other, and one system in place, to get the best intervention early and started for your kid once that diagnosis hits.
Alex, did you have anything to add?
I agree with all of that. That's
yeah, awesome. Okay, so let's move on to the next one here. So pursuing early intervention, and because we don't know what ages and stages that we have our viewers watching, early intervention is key, but don't feel guilty or bad if you've passed that age of early intervention. We have the infant toddler program, which serves families of children birth to 3. But if your child is past 3, don't worry. It's not like you can't get any services. It's not the end all be all, but Idaho has the infant toddler program. And with that program, it is at no cost to families. It's an intervention. It's a comprehensive intervention program that will identify a need or a few needs based on either a medical diagnosis or a developmental delay. And if there is not either one of those, but there is something, you notice that there is some sort of, your child just isn't meeting a milestone, or you're concerned about something, you can, please don't be afraid to refer or reach out for a referral. You can self-refer to the infant toddler program, and we will have, if it's not on the slide, we will definitely have a link to how to do that, or the Children's Therapy Place has the information on that as well. But to get an evaluation and have an assessment done on your child to see if there are services that Idaho can provide to your child and your family in their natural environment to help them catch up or teach the family how to provide those services in the home, in the childcare setting, in the therapy setting, in the community setting. We've had families services be provided in, let's say, the grocery store, teaching those skills and families how to improve their child's life and their family life in the community. And then we've got early childhood special education, which is also a program through the school, public school, ages 3 to 5, which is the developmental preschool, and that is based on an eligibility determination, where a family requests an evaluation, or it can come directly from the infant toddler program as a transition to that developmental preschool, where an evaluation is done based on the child's history, medical history, developmental delay, or anything like that. Same thing. Assessments are done, and then a plan is put in place. And if your child does not meet those eligibility requirements, and there are other things out there in the community like Head Start, early Head Start, you've got your therapy interventions, there's play groups available. There's just so many things out there for families to access. A lot of them are at no cost to families. And we have that information too. We don't want to overwhelm you with too many resources like at this point, because it really does depend on what your child needs at this time. And then if your child is older than 5, there is special education, or maybe even just 504 accommodations that can be provided at school. So, and then therapies and camps and all kinds of things like that, that we can help locate for you. Did I hit it all, guys? Great. Okay, so we're going to move on, because I know we're going to get close to our time here, and I want to hit everything. These are principles that we really try to embed in our trainings, in our children's lives, that we sometimes have a hard time remembering, that we need to dream big and have high expectations of our kids, all of our kids, and especially those of us who have kids with special needs. So, Melissa?
Yeah, and I think it just kind of comes back to presume competence, and you know your child the best, and you know what's going to work for them and what's going to work for your family. So, yeah, they are capable. Hold yourself accountable, but also hold the medical professionals, the therapists, everyone in your life, hold them accountable for your child's growth and expansion too.
I would even hold your child accountable, if you didn't say that. We sometimes forget that our children need to be held accountable no matter what they're going through. And I'm not saying, throw down the hammer and be this disciplinarian, but, we tend to, as parents, just want to make it easy for our kids. And I'm talking all of our kids, I think in general, and I am guilty 100% of that. And it's hard to hold myself accountable for holding my kids accountable. And I learned throughout my education that kids need to be accountable. It's important for their growth, for their confidence, and for them to feel that, they are important in this community, in this society, and that they can do it. The more we let them fail comfortably and safely, the more we are going to help them grow and become successful and see progress. It's a tough skill to learn as a parent, but we can do it. Anything to add with that, Miss Alex?
No, that's true. That's all good information, because no matter what, at schools and that kind of stuff, they're going to be held accountable for their actions, even
Absolutely.
though, or if they have a disability, depending on behaviors, and that you are not free of your consequences from your actions. And that is for all children, disability or not. So something that we do, or we learn as we grow. But it's been an experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important to point out, that no matter what happens, there are going to be community and societal consequences for our actions, no matter what and who we are. And so learning how to talk about your disability or challenge or diagnosis and how that affects you in the community and in your environment is key to being successful and making that progress. There are so many resources out there about, especially with autism, how to talk to your emergency professionals about kids with autism and how they interact in situations where change is fast, or in emergency situations, or at school, and tips about having a schedule and what to do when that schedule changes, or personal space, social interactions, things like that, where it's going to be important for their independence, for anyone's independence, on understanding and learning those environmental, I guess, rules that we have to follow, that just because we have a disability or a diagnosis doesn't exempt us from following those rules. And I've had experiences in my teaching and my coaching where that has been misunderstood, and I have had interactions with my students where they've been and they're so sweet, and they've been told, well, I have a disability, so I can do what I want to do, and it's because of this that I'm doing this. And then we have a meeting and we talk about, with the family, and we talk about, okay, so here's the situation that happened, and I understand that this is the disability. However, there are things that we need to maybe work on and put in some goals and talk about how we interact, and that, your disability doesn't have to define you, that your diagnosis isn't who you are, that it may affect some of your decisions and change the way that you look at things, but it doesn't mean that you are exempt from following the rules that everyone else does, that we need to find a different accommodation or a different way of communicating that to people who might not know you in the future. So it might seem scary and complicated, but we're here to help you, and with our experience and knowledge, and your teachers are here to help with that experience and knowledge. And I'm going to go forward a little bit to see where we're at here. Okay, so this is perfect because we're kind of moving right along. You are your child's team. You know your child best. You are your child's best advocate. And that is what is going to help your child be successful in life, especially when talking to school professionals and your therapists and doctors. And I know we keep talking a lot about school, but and using school as an example. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, before we close up in about 5 minutes. But do either of you guys want to talk about being on your child's team and what that means to you?
Sure. So just making sure that we have a great team of professionals surrounded by him. We have an awesome OT and speech therapist, and we've had to figure it out and find one that actually fits with our family. And that's okay to change professionals if you don't feel that it's a good fit. So that is you advocating for your child and making sure that your child is making progress and growth. I am always asking questions questions, especially in the beginning of the diagnosis. We were asking questions and wanting to find resources and just pure support. And I've always been open with him about his diagnosis. It's up to you how you would go about that with your child, and it's your own family's preference on that. But I thought that as he started to get a little older, he was asking questions on why he was, even going to the therapies and why he goes to the resource room and that kind of stuff. So to explain it to him in terms that he understood or that he was able to communicate with others definitely helped him to be able to communicate. He would go to the PSR, which was a psychosocial rehabilitator at that time, and he would go out into the community with her. And why is he going with a random person out into the community when he was 4? So I had to explain it in terms that were able for him to grasp. And he's made a lot of progress by that and is able to explain to others and to him that it does help him. So that was part of me being his support team.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. And and siblings are part of that team as well. And teaching those siblings that they can be part of that team might also help build some of that relationship with their sibling that is having to deal with life in a different way. My son's siblings are older, but it still is an issue with them, and we have had to explain that and talk to them and teach them about that. So we talk about some of these things, about school. So we're going to talk a little bit about the 7 steps to an IEP, which is not going to take long because our IEP training is actually a 3-hour training, and we don't have time for that right now. And but this is an option if you're considering receiving services in school or want to know if you can receive services in school. So the state, if you're concerned about your child in school and making progress and failing class, or if you're noticing that they're having struggles in different areas like reading, math, social, emotional, any area, physically, you're concerned, you have the option to request an evaluation. So based on Child Find, which is the law that districts or regions, every state has, in every state has a responsibility to identify, locate, and like I said, identify students who have a disability and may need assistance in school, accessing their education. So based on that Child Find law, we have the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And through that, a child can receive special education services based on an assessment and evaluation to receive services in the school setting. And that looks like, it's called an individualized education program, and there are steps to receiving those services. And so how that works is a student will go through a screening, so identify screening through their general education, or their family wants the referral or wants an evaluation. So we're going to move through. This is our next slide. So referral. Referrals are based on that concern of a need for help, or you're basically concerned. And so you're referred to the district. You would go to your district or your teacher, your student's general ed teacher, or the counselor, or whoever you feel might need to know that you would like to be referred or be evaluated for special education, or your child would. So then that starts a formal process to that evaluation process. This, you would generally, our general rule of thumb is to provide everything in writing, request everything in writing, that referral request to special education, to do that in writing. We've got resources on our website for we've got a template that is a request for referral template, request for evaluation, template that you would send to your teacher, your principal, your child's principal, sometimes the special ed director of your area, and then it moves forward from there. And then what happens with that is then the school will respond to you in writing whether or not they're going to refer or evaluate your child or not. Most of the time, best practices is that they will evaluate your child based on the child find law, and start that process. So they go through the evaluation, and an evaluation is just going to look at medical history, education history. They're going to talk to you as a parent, ask for your input, your concerns, and then they'll look at your outside therapies, like the doctor, like I said, medical, and any existing information that they have to put in their evaluations. So there'll be some official testing done if it's an initial evaluation. And then they'll put together an eligibility report. And that report will decide whether or not, based on the criteria that your child was evaluated, whether or not your child is going to be found eligible for services and what services they are eligible for. And like I said, that's another training all in its own. This is just kind of a general rundown of what happens. And then, does your child meet the criteria? One, which is, it's based on a 3-prong approach. Do they have a disability based on Idaho's 14 categories? And then, does it have an adverse impact on their education? And then the third, do they need specially designed instruction? So is the general ed instruction meeting their needs, and do they need it to be designed especially for them individually? And then the team will meet and discuss the report, and then they'll meet to discuss how to build that IEP, that individualized education program for your child, with goals, current levels of performance. The PLAF is their present level of academic achievement and functional performance. We love our acronyms for some reason, but to say that every single time would be a tongue twister. It's a tongue twister just to say it right now. And then we talk about all of that. And then every year, legally, you have an annual review. That doesn't mean you have to go back through the eligibility process. You're just reviewing the goals to see if anything needs to be changed, if, what's changed over the year. And then at 3 years, you will do that 3-year evaluation to see if anything needs to be looked at again, more in depth, if there needs to be new evaluations done. And from there, we move on. So I think we did that all within a reasonable amount of time. I think we went a little bit over, but we started a little late. These are some resources, and I've talked the most of the time, so I'm sorry. Do either of you want to go over these resources?
Sure. The Autism Society of America is a great resource. We have one Idaho chapter as well. And then Treasure Valley, so there's Treasure Valley Autism Society. And then we have the understood.org. And then there's a lot of Facebook groups for resources of parents of special needs, and a lot of them are Idaho local. So you can just go on there, type in like Idaho special needs parents or autism and parents, something to that effect, and you'll be able to find resources on there as well.
Yeah, and I would say if you have any specific needs or questions or just need pointed in a direction, contact our offices and we can absolutely help you to find those resources that you're looking for as well. That's our job, and we love doing it.
And we are a statewide organization. So we serve families all across the state. And we are federally funded through the Office of Special Education and the Department of Health, the Health Resources Administration, as the Family to Family Health Information Center and the Parent Training and Information Center. So we help families find and locate resources for healthcare and for special education and understanding their rights and responsibilities and things like that. So if you need additional help and want to know what other trainings we provide, please just call our office or email us, and we'll be happy to help. We will be, after Friday, we will have these this webinar along with Friday's webinar on our website, and it will come with some handouts that you can access. I will also email the Children's Therapy Place with some of those resources too, so that you can access those. There's some websites to help with specific goals and ideas for behavior and things like that for when trying to find ideas for helping your child now while you're waiting for a diagnosis or other things like that. So I hope we answered your questions. I'm gonna let Carly ask any questions that she thinks she has right now, and then we'll close out.
No, thank you so much, you guys, for doing this presentation. This was awesome. It was everything that I think we were needing and that I think would be a great opportunity for families. So I really appreciate your time. And on behalf of Children's Therapy Place, we appreciate your time and efforts put into this to helping spread the word and help get more resources out there for families.
Fantastic. Well, we will see you guys again on Friday for our second part, and I hope you have a great day and great week, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks.
Bye.